Welcome to watch.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We have a special song and story planned for you today. We hope you enjoy. Do you remember our song for today? What song did we sing? Come into our heart. That's right. Who do we want to live in our heart? Jesus. And you know what? Jesus wants to live in our heart too, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Let's share that song with our friends, okay? Into my heart, into my heart, come into my heart, Lord Jesus, come in today, come in to stay, come into my heart, Lord Jesus. Jesus, shine out today, shine out always, shine out of my heart, Lord Jesus. Good morning, Andrew. Andrew, are you ready for your book this morning? Look what we've got. We've got a Busy Bunny book. Ooh, look at that. Busy Bunnies. Yes, by John Schindel and Stephen Holt. Let's open it up. Busy bunnies. What are they doing? Bunnies hopping. Bunnies plopping. Bunny shoving. Bunny loving. What do you think, Doodlebug? Bunnies bunching. Bunnies munching. Bunny sniffing. Bunny sipping. Bunny standing. Bunny landing. Bunny scrubbing. Bunny rubbing. Bunny riding. Bunny hiding. Bunny peeking. Bunny sleeping. And they lived happily ever after. Busy bunnies. We have a special book to share with you today. It's called The First Ride. What do you think it's going to be about, Nathaniel?
It's going to be about the first ride.
The First Ride, Blazing the Trail for the Pony Express by Jacqueline Geese. Wanted, young, skinny, wiry fellows, not over 18. Must be expert riders willing to risk death daily. Orphans preferred. Wages $25 per week. Apply Central Overland Express, Alta Building, Montgomery Street. In 1860, I was hired by the Central Overland California and Pikes Peak Express Company to ride for the Pony Express. I was given a small Bible and asked to sign a pledge. All riders had to promise to never use bad language, drink alcohol, or fight with others. We had to promise to be honest and faithful in our jobs and to use our weapons only in self-defense. Riders traveled both ways, east and west, on the Pony Express Trail. The ride west started in St. Joseph, Missouri, while the ride east began in Sacramento, California. I was the first eastbound rider, picking up mail in Sacramento and carrying it to my home station in Sportsman's Hall. There I would wait for a little over 9 days for the westbound mail to reach me. Then it would be back to Sacramento, carrying news of the east to that city. Our orders were to stay on schedule no matter what happened. Our motto was, the mail must go through. As the sun was peeking through the snow clouds, my first eastbound ride was coming to an end. I could see my home station up ahead in the town of Sportsman's Hall. It was a welcome sight, for I had just ridden 60 miles east from Sacramento, and I was tired and cold. The station keeper grabbed my sturdy, snorting Mustang as I arrived. He gave my leather mail pouch, called a mochila, to the waiting rider and sent him on his way toward the east. "What's your name, son?" asked the station keeper. "Billy Hamilton," I replied through my chattering teeth. Wiping my red, running nose on my sleeve, I went inside the cabin to warm myself. As I stood in front of the fire, the feeling of my numb-to-the-bone fingers returned. The feeling in my fingers returned. My stomach began to howl like a coyote as the smell of food and beans in a pot hanging over the flames tickled and tempted my nose. After I'd hung my cold, wet clothes by the fire, the station keeper came in. He stomped the snow from his boots and rustled up a plate of beans and cornbread and a tin cup of coffee for me. For the next 9 days, we would share chores, dreams, and tall tales of the trail, waiting while other Pony Express riders carried the westbound mail to my station.
Did they have trains?
They didn't have trains. They didn't have cars. They didn't have planes. They just rode on horseback. That's why they called it the Pony Express. Just 15 hours after I arrived at Sportsman's Hall, a celebration had begun in the town of St. Joseph, Missouri.
Did they have a monorail?
Did they have a what? A monorail? They didn't have a monorail yet. Nope. Just horses and ponies. Flags of all kinds and colors rippled and waved from the town buildings while a brass band played. Men, women, and children, dressed in their best, had come to see the westbound Pony Express take off for the 2,000-mile trip to Sacramento, California. The thought that mail could reach the West Coast in only 10 days was almost impossible to believe. In the excitement, the crowd spooked the horse chosen for the first run. Some even tried to pull hairs from her tail to keep as souvenirs. The people in the crowd became restless when they were told that the train carrying the mail from Washington, D.C. was more than 2 hours late. I was wrong, Nathaniel. There's a train that would come from Washington, D.C. to Missouri, but no train could go out to California yet. More than 2 hours was more than 2 hours late.
Can train go out to California?
Not when this story was being told. Trains go to California and planes and all sorts of things now. At last they heard the whistle of the train and the sound of the engine rushing and roaring at the edge of town. A cannon fired a smoky salute after the mayor and company officials shouted their speeches. Johnny Fry was dressed in a red shirt, blue jeans, boots, and slouch hat, and carried a shiny revolver in a Slim Jim holster. He put the mochila on his saddle and mounted his horse. He rode a few blocks to the west, to the ferry boat that would float him across the Missouri River to Elwood in Kansas Territory. After the ferry docked, Fry continued on his way, racing toward the west. He had started 2.5 hours behind schedule, so he rode hard.
Did they have dump truck?
No dump trucks. He rode hard from relay station to station in order to make up for lost time. Don Rising, who was barely old enough to grow a beard, took the mochila from Johnny Fry at Seneca and carried it to Marysville. The leather mochila was used to carry the mail because it fit over the saddle and was easily passed from one rider to the next. Attached to the mochila were 4 boxes called cantinas. 3 cantinas were locked and one was kept open to receive the mail. The locked cantinas could only be opened with keys guarded in the post offices in St. Joseph and Sacramento. Rising arrived in Maryville just about the time I was settling in at Sportsman's Hall.
Did they have a logo?
They didn't have a loader, Nathaniel. No loaders. All those things came later. This was a story from a long time ago. Jack Keatley, waiting at the Maryville station, grabbed the mochila from Rising and carried it through stations called Hollenberg, Rock Creek, and Big Sandy. Henry Wallace, on his Kentucky-bred horse, rode through the prairie grass so fast he could set it on fire. He took the mochila through Liberty Farm and on to Fort Kearny. Immigrants who were riding in a stagecoach on the Oregon Trail strained their necks like turtles in their shells to get a glimpse of a Pony Express rider passing by. The rider was Barney Wintle, headed for Cottonwood Springs, hunched down in the saddle behind his horse's mane. Riding as if he'd seen the ghost of an Indian spirit, he dodged and darted around the stagecoach. Some think the eastbound and westbound riders passed each other somewhere east of Salt Lake City. An eagle in the sky was probably the only one to witness that event. Richard Egan galloped across the wide desert floor, blinking his eyes at the mirages he saw on his 75-mile trip to Rush Valley. William Dennis took over next, blazing a trail to Egan Canyon. William Fisher rode through the mountain ranges where every rock, tree, and trail looked the same as 10 others, making it easy to get lost. A skillful explorer, Fisher found his home station at Ruby Valley. With every change in the wind, Pony Bob Haslam breathed in scents of sagebrush and juniper on his route from Buckland Station, past Carson City, and west to Friday's Station. While I waited, Warren Upson was riding through the Sierra Nevada mountains toward my home station. His horse picked up his way carefully through the dangerous, narrow trail between the granite cliffs. Upson, in awe of the towering heights, looked toward the sky at clouds that appeared to beckon him and guide him safely through the stony passages to Sportsman's Hall. I heard the rumbling hoofbeats in the distance and turned in time to see Upson's hat fly off his head. My wait was over. Upson threw me the maquila, and I was on my way. I was off on my ride back to Sacramento. Remembering my company pledge, I couldn't have been stopped by a blizzard, an earthquake, or a shower of arrows. Judging by the time, watching the sun sink lower in the sky, I knew I was getting close to Sacramento. By dusk, I had reached the edge of town, riding behind a cloud of dust from lookout messengers who rode ahead of me. A bonfire in the street lit the cheering faces of the townspeople. At last, their isolation from the rest of the country was ended. The freighting firm Russell, Majors & Waddell was the parent company of the Central Overland California and Pikes Peak Express Company, who ran the Pony Express. The company's owners had dreamed up the Pony Express as a way to reduce the time it took messages to reach California. They hoped to be given the great overland mail delivery contract by the U.S. government. They were not awarded this contract. Only 18 months after the first historic ride, the company that ran the Pony Express was bankrupt. The arrival of telegraph lines in California meant that mail delivery by horse was no longer needed. But the Pony Express riders had proved that mail could be carried year-long along a northern route. They also showed that this route would be a good line for the telegraph and the railroad. Many people believe that the Pony Express helped to keep California in the Union during the Civil War by quickly delivering important messages along a northern route where they could not be captured by Southern spies. Today, the Pony Express lives on in the tales of the old American West. The stables in St. Joseph, Missouri, starting point of that first ride, have been restored. They now house the Pony Express National Memorial, a museum dedicated to preserving the legend of the Pony Express. The first ride, blazing the trail for the Pony Express.
Bye.
That would be a fun place to go and visit, wouldn't it, Nathaniel? Thank you so much for watching today. We hope you enjoyed our stories and our song. We'll see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Come back again, we'll see you soon. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
He was singing too.
He was singing too.
Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.
Goodbye.